What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas here live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Once again, it is Wednesday, and what it means on Wednesday when you're listening to the show, it means that there will be an awesome guest on the show on a weekly basis. Every Wednesday, I like to have a guest on the show, and I got none other than a good buddy of mine, Ty B from the Trainwreck Sports brand. How's it going, Ty B? How you doing?
Oh, it's going great. Just got home from work a little while ago. Just cracked open a little Twilight Sparkle from Thin Man, trying that one out.
Nice.
Been liking everything else they got, so, figured I'd get into a sour. Get me ready, riled up to talk some UFC 244. I'm pumped up.
Yeah, I bet. Thin Man, you can never go wrong with Thin Man. Never. Never. Yeah, and among the many great beer choices that there are in Buffalo, I think Thin Man is probably right up at the top, I'd say. So shout out to them for sure.
I've been drinking a ton of Burning Money lately.
Nice. So as I have just my basic Labatt Blue with the Trainwreck Sports koozie. So
hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Shout out Labatt USA.
Right.
They are friends of the train.
Yes, they are.
That's my go-to domestic as well.
Right, it has to be. I mean, what is a better domestic than that? There isn't one.
I don't think there is anything.
Right. So, Tybee, let's dive into it. As you know, I said from the top here, having you on the show again. The last time you were on the show, we did talk some draft stuff, but we also dove into MMA a little bit. And since then, there has been a lot of MMA topics to go over that this past weekend in particular. UFC 244 took place at Madison Square Garden. You had the President Trump, live in the building. You had celebrities in the building as well in Madison Square Garden. A big night for the company nonetheless.
Yeah,
what were your thoughts on UFC 244, and what was your thought particularly on the main event?
Yeah, I think it was... Honestly, it was all around great from the beginning of the fights. I thought the prelims, I caught the end of them because I was at the Sabres game, but even the prelims were great. I thought it was just a stacked card all around, and I know a lot of people are upset about that finish in the main event, but it lived up to the hype. You got 3 rounds. I thought Masvidal could have maybe jumped on him and ended it early, and he didn't, so I was happy about that.
Right, and there was a moment there, briefly there, in the second, and then in the third. Well, in the first, second, and third round, really, where Masvidal could have finished that. So there's a lot of fans out there that are kind of frustrated with the result. They wanted to see a full 5-round fight, and I thought Masvidal had Nate Diaz's number. Right? It looked like it.
Oh, he was just kind of picking him off, and he was really smart about it, really calculated. I thought he was just taking his time, picking his shots. You sort of know the way Diaz likes to fight. He doesn't mind being on his back and getting hurt and taking some punishment to dole out even more punishment on his end. And I thought he did a good job not trying to jump on him. When he was getting under the ground, I think he could have got the finish down there because he really had Nate hurt a couple times. Especially, I thought that leg kick to the abdomen, that thing was brutal. Nate went, crumbled immediately. If you get on top of him, he's got no breath at that point. I don't think he's, going to really be able to do too much defensively or offensively, and you might be able to end that one there. But Masvidal was very calculated, and it was a great game plan. I thought all night he was just getting in there on him and being able to stay just far enough out of Diaz's range where he couldn't really get the full force into any of his punches, and I thought that's where Masvidal really excelled. He was just keeping himself off of, the full force of Nate Diaz while being able to still to get into the pocket and still extend himself, getting into that Foley. You saw the power he was throwing. Right,
and everything was in 2s and 3s. There was no sequence where Masvidal was just throwing one punch at a time. No. It was very crisp. His striking, honestly, it it has always been good, but it looked like it has definitely improved even since the Darren Till fight, and obviously the Ben Askren fight was a 5-second flying knee knockout, so that one you can't even really, I mean, not that doesn't count, but right, that was a baptism for sure. So as far as what's next, I think as MMA fans, a lot of MMA fans have kind of asked me and are wondering what I think is next. I want to know what you think is next. Do you think that they will do an immediate rematch of this fight, being that it did end in quick fashion with a doctor stoppage in the start of the fourth round? Do you think that they will do an immediate rematch, or do you think that there's other plans with Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz?
I think in the UFC's mind, with what Masvidal is doing and the performance he just put on, I think he was easily winning that fight. He was winning it 3-0. I don't care what Nate Diaz says about his strategy about wanting to come back in the last 2 rounds and play it slow. Right. He was not. He was just getting rocked. You don't go down that many times. You don't try to withstand that many shots. You're going to be trying to at least dodge some of these. You're going to get into the clinch. You're going to slow things down. You're not just going to take shots all night for 3 rounds and then try to bounce back. That's a terrible game plan. I don't need to see the rematch. I think because of the nature of these two guys and the true warrior, gladiator sense of being that these two guys have, I think that they'll be the ones who really do want to run it back. But in UFC's best interest, I think you can get Masvidal moving up the ladder here and get him into a title fight quickly, and I think that benefits Jorge the most too.
Right. I agree. I think Jorge Masvidal has done more than enough to earn the right to fight the winner of Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. I think he's the next number one contender, and being Kevin Lee, we'll get to that in that fight in a little bit. But as far as the main event goes, I really enjoyed it. I thought the whole concept of the fight was really awesome, and what really makes it awesome is that it was 100% authentic, and it was created by Nate Diaz, who ended up losing the fight, but it still gave us a really good moment in the sport and gave us a really fun fight to look back on. And I think eventually they will rematch. And I kind of put something out the other day that maybe if we look into the crystal ball here without getting too far ahead of ourselves, I think Jorge Masvidal could beat Kamaru Usman with the hot streak that he's on. I think he could beat Colby Covington. What if by some stroke of just pure coincidence that Jorge Masvidal does continue this run and that they do run it back, but this time they run it back for the real thing, the real belt? What would you do? Would you be able to contain yourself? I know I wouldn't.
No. I wouldn't. I'd be going wild.